Hey everyone, this is Big Mike, and this is going to be my non-spoiler review of Godzilla vs. Kong. The match of the century has finally arrived. Godzilla, the king of monsters, versus King Kong of Skull Island. Battle it out to see who's the top titan on Earth. So, my review is, I really enjoyed the movie. I mean, it's one of those movies where you kind of got to turn your brain off. You know what I mean? It's a giant lizard fighting a giant gorilla. I mean, come on. You're not expecting, an Oscar nominated performance or anything like that. Now, the MonsterVerse, for the most part, I have enjoyed. My favorite movie of the MonsterVerse has been Kong Skull Island, actually. And I think it still is. I mean, Godzilla vs. Kong was very good. I really like the fights in it. I kind of wish there was a little bit more, but I understand because the CG was really good, so it had to be super expensive. So I do think, they did have the right amount of fights in there, even though I would have liked to seen, a little bit more. They were very gratifying. They looked fantastic. I mean, this movie looks amazing. The plot, it was okay, I guess. I mean, it was kind of convoluted and, whatever. But I mean, like I said, you didn't pay to see some Oscar, winning movie. You paid to see a giant lizard fighting a giant ape. That's what you paid to see. And it, for all intents and purposes, it delivered. Like I said, Kong Skull Island was probably still my favorite MonsterVerse movie. Probably followed by Godzilla King of Monsters. No. Okay. Kong Skull Island. Godzilla vs. Kong. Godzilla King of Monsters. And then Godzilla. That's how I would rank from, 1 to 4 these movies in the MonsterVerse. Not to say that I really didn't enjoy Godzilla vs. Kong. I still think Kong Skull Island overall is a better film. Like, and the rewatchability, at least for me, is vast. I can see myself rewatching Godzilla vs. Kong probably multiple times, but I still like Kong Skull Island is kind of like, one of my go-to films a lot of the times. So of the MonsterVerse, that is. So I really enjoyed Godzilla vs. Kong. So like I said, what I did, let's go over what I did and didn't like, basically. So what I did like, of course, was how grand the scale was, how great all the fights looked, and how great everything looked. I mean, it looked very realistic. You could tell the CG, was top notch. We're getting to that point now where it's hard to really decipher, you know what I mean? What's real and what's not. I mean, everything just looks great nowadays. And especially when they put a lot of time, effort, and money, into these type of things. So what I didn't like, in the beginning, the pacing was a little slow for me, because I'm just wanting to see these fights. It was a little slow. I do think the human characters, of course, were lacking a bit. But that's pretty much the overall consensus of all of the MonsterVerse films, in my opinion, is that the human elements were some of the worst things about the MonsterVerse movies. Well, I'll say that about the Godzilla movies. To me, the human characters were actually very interesting in Kong Skull Island. So I think that's another thing that kind of got me into this. Another thing I liked is Kong's relationship with Gia. She's a deaf Iwi girl. She seemed to be the only survivor of Skull Island. So they kind of have this bond to where, she protects him or whatever. And as you can see in the trailer, she's deaf, so she signs to him. And Kong actually can sign, which we know apes can do. And that's actually cool. Like, Kong has the intelligence of a normal ape, and he is able to communicate with humans, and he communicates with Gia because he trusts her. He won't communicate with anybody else, but he will communicate with her via sign. So that was actually kind of cool to see. Now, another thing I didn't like, Godzilla is kind of like a secondary character in this movie. Like, he had no real character development. I mean, I know he had 2 of his own movies. He kind of had a character development in those. But in this movie, he was just like a rampaging beast. I mean, it's explained why. But it was still like, this was very much a Kong movie. Very much a Kong movie. I mean, for the most of the movie, we followed Kong and his team on, his adventure and him seeking out answers. So kind of like where he came from and where his life is going, So this was, to me, yes, it was Godzilla versus Kong, but this was very much a Kong movie. And overall, I really enjoyed it. I think I'd give it a 8 out of 10, which is, again, kind of high for me. I did really enjoy it. And you're like, hey, Mike, well, if you give that an 8, what would you give Kong Skull Island? Probably like an 8.5. So yes, I give Godzilla versus Kong an 8. It was a good movie. I do think it would be very grand to see it in IMAX, even though I didn't want to venture out of my house, so I watched it on HBO Max. But if you feel comfortable going to the theater and seeing this, I would definitely recommend it. So if you saw Godzilla vs. Kong, let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Please like this video, subscribe, share. Please hit that bell for notifications so you can be notified of all my latest content. And once again, thank you for watching, and see you next time.